eyes on the road, cowboy.
You getting nervous?
He did the stare and drive on you, didn't he? He got that from me.
What's his deal?
I got a problem with authority.
You just need to chill out.
You ready for this?
Come on, man. Guns, murderers, and crooked cops. I was made for this, bruh.
Welcome to They Called Us a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and other podcast services by searching They Called Us a Movie, and find us on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCDAM Pod. We are also now a proud member of Geek Vibes Nation, and you could find them at gvnation.com. Welcome back to They Called Us a Movie. This is Anthony Delvecchio, and with me as always is Dan Aquino and Mark Myers. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, friends.
This is a glorious day. It has finally happened.
You saw the Batman.
I can't believe it took 160 something episodes.
175.
175, and I was finally able to sneak it in. I'm going to thank our guest for allowing that to happen.
Yeah, I think Dan, you meant Hello Family.
No, I did. If we had seen any other movie, sure, it would have fit. Not in this one, though.
That's true. That is true.
This movie is not about family.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Freaking believable. All we hear from Mark. Oh God, here it's already started. I apologize, Mark. All we hear from you, Mark, is La Familia. La Familia. It is not uttered once in this goddamn movie.
Well, that was before. This movie was before Vin Diesel got his Producers Guild license. So to go
he had his say.
We do hear people say "cuz" and "bro." Those are sorts of family members.
They say "breh."
Breh.
Breh.
Cuh.
Yeah.
And you also see the first versions of Roman and Tej, and then they are completely unrecognizable the next time you see them.
I wonder why. Because everybody hates this movie. But before we get into this week's movie, we have a guest this week. She's the content manager for Geek Vibes Nation, and we plug her podcast each and every week. And we like to introduce to the show Tia. Welcome back, Tia.
Oh my God, thank you guys. Last time I was on, we were reviewing / slamming Wonder Woman 1984. So I'm happy to be on and to be given an excuse to finally watch an entry in Fast and the Furious franchise. This is the first time, guys, so yeah.
Yeah.
I am sorry about that, even as a Fast and Furious fan.
And I have to say that, this came out in 2003. I was 13 when this came out, and I'm looking at the outfits going, yeah, that was part of the course.
Yep. Would it help you enjoy this movie more, Tia, if I told you it was directed by John Singleton?
That's a no.
Would you be offended if I said I don't recognize who that is?
I don't know.
There you
Never
go.
mind, then.
That answers your question, Mark. Tia, why don't you tell us a little bit about Top 10 with Tia?
Yeah, so Top 10 with Tia, Brittany is my co-host. We have, since the beginning of the new year, have kind of changed up the structure a little. Instead of doing it on a weekly basis, we do it on a monthly basis, and we kind of changed up how we even are doing it. Like, we're doing it on YouTube now, so you can see our faces, if that's an upside or a downside, as the viewers let me know. But yeah, I mean, it's really enjoyable. I think the both of us are having so much fun with this new style that we're doing it. And now that, it seems like kind of the pandemic is coming to an end, I think that we'll have a lot more things to create top 10 lists on. So yeah, I mean, you can find it. Geek Vibes Podcast is the YouTube channel. That's where we have our top 10s. And I am editing currently the newest top 10, which should be out sometime this week.
Look forward to seeing that. As we do every week, we talk about what we've watched this week. Tia, we're going to start with you. Has there been anything that you've watched this week that you want to talk about?
I've watched two things. I finished the 4th season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I'm a huge fan of that show, and it took me a little longer than usual to finish it, but I'm glad that I did. And then I also watched on Netflix, there's a 4-part documentary series called Worst Roommate Ever. And if you like strange stories like that, say a roommate who invites you to live with them only for them to cash your security check and then bury you in their backyard, then I suggest that.
Oh, that's a brutal episode, Tia. I've seen that.
Oh, you've seen it?
That's the old. Well, she's not
The
that
old lady.
old at the time. Yeah. Oh, that was so disappointing.
It was so crazy. I was sitting there going, man, you wouldn't know. You would think this woman is this sweet old lady. She's making you food. She's taking in the downtrodden in life, and it's all so that she could, in fact, just get their money and then kill them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've had some bad roommates, but not anywhere near that.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, Dan, I don't know if you watched the 3rd and 4th episode, but that was pretty brutal, too, that roommate.
I've seen them all. I don't know like the episode.
The guy who was the squatter who would just like go in and then like never leave.
Yeah, and those poor women. That was rough because there was just nothing that they could do. And this guy was, I think he used to be a lawyer. He said, and he knew he knew the squatters' laws better than the actual lawyers apparently. So this dude would just terrorize women wherever he went.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would literally just say, come into your house and get his mail delivered there. And he's like, well, I live here now. There's nothing you can do about this.
Like, it makes me like, I wish I would have figured that out when I was younger. But like not be a jerk about it. You know, like I wouldn't like terrorize anybody. I would just be like, no, well, I'm just going to stay here and be really nice about it.
Like take out the trash, do the dishes,
Yeah,
you know,
do the
like
dishes, vacuum, right? So like the
pull your own weight.
right, the roommate would be conflicted. Like, man, he's not paying anything, but the apartment is sparkling clean. he goes to bed at a reasonable time, doesn't have anyone over. I kind of like this guy.
No loud music or anything. It's just
exactly.
I may not be able to afford here because he doesn't pay his half of the rent. But besides that, everything else is great.
Hey, listen, just real quick. I hope this isn't a bother. I'm not gonna pay you. I'm really sorry about that. But hey, you're welcome to take me to court, and that'll take a year. So good luck. But don't worry. I'll clean up and I'll get groceries for us. It's all good.
That's a perfect idea. That if only it had went in that direction, it would have been a completely different story.
All right, Dan, what about you? Watch anything recently?
I did. I've watched a few things. Of note, I watched Desperado with Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek. I think that movie it's a good movie. I mean, I like it. I don't know whether you guys might be mixed on it, but I think that would be a pretty good episode for this podcast, just because of how outlandish it is and how over the top it is. Sure. So I saw that, and then I saw the Addams Project with Ryan Reynolds and Mark Ruffalo, and I think Jennifer Gardner is in it. And yeah, that's brutal. That's what Netflix is pumping out, man. I don't think you can really justify hiking up your prices if you're giving me that kind of content.
Where do you stand on the Ryan Reynolds front?
Oh,
I feel like we've talked about this before.
Yeah, again, he's basically Ryan Reynolds in everything he does. And this is no different. And what's worse is there's a younger version of him.
Oh, no.
And so the kid is trying to be current Ryan Reynolds, which is, it's brutal. Absolutely brutal. Because the kid makes these weird quips and mugs for the camera while he's mugging for the camera. So the kid and Ryan Reynolds are trying to outmug each other, I guess. And
Wow.
so Sean Levy, I believe, is the director of Adam's Project, or the Adam Project, and he's set to direct Deadpool 3, which terrifies me now because the writing of this movie was terrible. The action was decent, and the dialogue, I think that's what scares me the most. The dialogue was really bad. At one point, the kid does a superhero landing and says superhero landing. And
Oh boy.
yeah, luckily it was at the end of the movie. I was like, well, I'm already invested in this. I can't turn it off now. But that surprised me about this movie is that I don't know if you guys are going to see this movie or if you care to see it.
Probably not.
Okay. So this is like,
But we do have listeners that might not want to be spoiled.
it's a light spoil. It's a light,
All right.
but I have to say it, or else I can't get my joke out, and then I would feel terrible because I thought about this one for quite a while, and I was like, I need to say this. There's a part at the very end where Mark Ruffalo, the kid, and Ryan Reynolds are playing catch, and for the life of me, I could have sworn that Mark Ruffalo had no clue how to throw a baseball. Like, there's no way he knows how to throw. He doesn't look like he knows how to do anything physical. And surprisingly, he knew how to throw the baseball pretty well. I was surprised. I thought they would just keep cutting back and forth, when it was his turn to throw.
Mm-hmm.
It's like hard cut to Ryan Reynolds catching the ball. But yeah, so congratulations, Mark Ruffalo. You surprised me.
I would have guessed that he wouldn't have been able to throw a baseball either.
Right, he doesn't look like he can do anything physical.
Yeah. I think it's just the Bruce Banner persona that he kind of has created.
He exudes that, right?
Yeah. A little nebbishy. Yeah. Is that it?
I wanted to say
That's
really
all
quick.
for me.
I want to say really quick. I
Go ahead.
feel like they probably gave like Sean Levy the job because he did Free Guy, and I guess that was such a success for Disney that they're like, let's give him Deadpool. But I'm looking at his filmography, and I mean, really nothing that looks too exciting to say this is the guy to direct a Deadpool film.
I thought Free Guy was really boring. I did not like Free Guy at all.
To be fair, I
I
didn't
haven't
watch
seen
it, so.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't know, man. It was really just all pop culture references. It was like Ready Player One.
Sure. I haven't seen it. I know he's Canadian though, so that's probably it. That's the reason. They're both Canadian, so yeah, his filmography is very mid-tier.
Yeah.
Yeah, Big Fat Liar, The Pink Panther, Night at the Museum,
Wait, he
Date
Big
Night, Real
Fat Liar
Steel.
with Frankie Muniz?
The Frankie Muniz. That's like that might be his first. So he's got a lot of TV and like family friendly TV.
He did direct a few episodes of Stranger Things, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's
3
about
episodes of Animorphs in the 90s. There you go.
And I like those books.
The 47 episodes of the famous Jet Jackson.
Oh.
Oh god.
Just Married, Cheaper by the Dozen. Yeah, this is mid-tier comedies that nobody cares about. This is where I leave you. The Internship. Oof.
Oh, with Vince Vaughn and
Yeah.
Owen Wilson.
These are like Sunday afternoon Comedy Central movies.
Yeah. Not great. It doesn't fill me with confidence.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
So this will be
All right,
the
what
worst Deadpool by far. Then.
Already
Yeah,
predicting it.
now that Disney owns it too, that's not boding well.
No.
What about you, Mark? What'd you watch this week?
So Dan, I saw the Batman.
Oh, thank God. We can talk about it. Unless Tia hasn't seen it.
I haven't, but because I'm waiting.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm waiting for it to come on HBO Max, but you could talk about it. I'm fine with spoilers.
No, listen.
No.
That would be a grave injustice if we spoiled this movie for you.
The only thing I'll say, I did like it a lot. I'll have the unfortunate memory of randomly throwing up in the movie theater immediately after the movie
No.
for reasons I don't know.
I didn't think that you were going to divulge that information.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad you did.
I'm an open book on this podcast.
Is that all you watched this week, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. So this week I went to the theaters and I saw X from A24. Yeah, X was good though. I liked it. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird as hell. But it feels very Texas Chainsaw Massacre-y, but also better than the Netflix version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The cast is really good. It's a slow burn movie, sort of like Ty West's other movies, like House of the Devil and other movies like that.
Does it feel like this is Brittany Snow needing to just shed a little bit of the Pitch Perfect stuff?
She sheds a little more than the Pitch Perfect stuff, if you know what I mean.
Hey!
Heyo. Yes. But she's good in it. They're all really good. The cast is really good. But it goes into some weird places, and I appreciate it for that. And it's pretty funny. It's a pretty funny movie. Very darkly comic, but I enjoyed myself with it. Other than that, I did some rewatches. I watched the aforementioned Dark Knight Rises just because I haven't watched that in a while. It's not one I usually go back to. It's fine. People make fun of the voice, but I do like Tom Hardy's Bane in it.
I'm gonna agree.
I think he's just got such a screen presence. He's got such a screen presence that it kind of, I can overlook the admittedly silly voice.
You know what I think the problem is? I think the big issue with Bane is that he follows a Oscar-winning performance in Heath Ledger, right?
Yeah, sure.
So that's such a tough act to follow.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tia. You were going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I really liked The Dark Knight Rises when it first came out. I thought, the general consensus was that it was good, but I wasn't active on Twitter when it came out, and I don't even think, people were active on social media, in that sense at that point. So when I became, fully engulfed in the geekdom a few years ago, and I'm, kind of looking at the discourse, and people's just seeing it, and I was like, wait, people hated this? I thought we all were in agreement that it was good, albeit the silly voice, but besides that, the acting, the story, the emotions, Alfred crying, and it's no, people hated The Dark Knight Rises. I don't know. I rewatched it during the beginning of the lockdown, and I was still a solid movie.
Yeah. I think it's obvious, it's flawed. There are some silly things. The pacing is kind of all over the place, but I enjoyed myself watching it again. Probably maybe the third time I've ever seen it. I don't really rewatch these movies that often. I rewatched that, and I also watched for the first time. I watched The Tragedy of Macbeth, the Joel Cohen directed adaptation of Macbeth, starring Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. Really good, pretty straightforward adaptation, but very stylized. Lots of black and whites. Very interesting cinematography, but standard kind of You got Denzel as Macbeth. That's who you really can't go wrong with that. And that made me want to watch and get my kind of film snob hat on for the first time in a while and watch The Seventh Seal because it's very similar in cinematography. So I watched that for the first time in 10 years, which I always love that movie. That Ingmar Bergman, he knows what he's doing. That's about it. That's all I watched this week, except for been watching The Simpsons a little bit, but that's about it. So yep, I think that's it. So we're going to take a quick break, and you guys will listen to some ads so we can pay those bills, and we'll be back in a second. And welcome back. And now it's time to get in this week's movie. But before we do, I just wanted to mention over on Twitter, if you go onto our Twitter at TickTamPod, we currently have a poll going for our March movie of the month. And we got a real slobber knocker going on here. As of right now, we are at a dead heat between Major League 3 and Mr. 3000.
Damn it.
I think there's less than a few hours left. Less than a day left if you're listening to this on Thursday. So go over to TickTamPod and vote if you haven't yet. And this is, unfortunately for Mark, this is a winner retire match for Summer Catch. He's currently trailing.
Where are my Freddie Prinze Jr. fans out there? Come on.
She's probably at home with him right now. Sorry, Michelle Gellar, the only other Freddie Prinze fan. But this week was Mark's pick. So Mark, why don't you tell us which movie you made us watch?
Yeah, so I will first off say that I had snuck this onto the list as a joke, not really thinking Ant would ever allow this day to occur. So I had put on, after years of mentioning my love for Fast and Furious movies, I put what I consider the worst Fast and Furious movie on the list, which is Too Fast, Too Furious from 2003, I believe. It is everything. The funny part is it's everything that the series is not in the other 8 movies. And that is the funny part about this, and what I thought would be a great thing for this podcast is because this is the one that has the most to rip apart in. Just because it was a very stereotypical Universal sequel in which they just threw characters from a previous movie into a different situation that had nothing to do with the previous movie, and was just like, sequel, give us money. Because the story goes that they wrote two different scripts, one involving Vin Diesel and one not involving Vin Diesel. So this was the one that got chosen, which obviously did not have Vin Diesel in it. But I will give this movie credit. It did introduce us to who probably become my favorite comedy duo in the rest of the series, which you wouldn't know from this movie, in Roman Pierce and Taj. So, Tyrese and Ludacris in here, they played a lot more straight and tough guy-ish in this movie. But they do become like the comic relief as the series goes along. So that might be the one good thing to come out of this. And I am sorry that if this was your first Fast and Furious experience, that it was this movie, because outside of the fourth one, this one probably has the least DNA of the series.
Okay. Now, Mark, I have a question for you,
Yes.
because I just have to know what attracts you to these movies, because you don't come off as a car guy. Maybe I'm wrong, but we've known each other for almost 20 years. And you've never mentioned cars to me ever. Like, they don't exist in our world. So I'm fascinated by your love for this series. And I know they get so much different than this movie and the first one. But this is in its DNA. There is a love and an appreciation for the automotive. So I'm curious, what movie did you watch first, and was that the first one that clicked? What clicked for you that made this movie arguably your favorite franchise ever?
Yeah, it's definitely in the top three, because there's an obvious one from where I grew up that would be in that conversation too. But to be honest, I think the love part of the series came with Fast Five. Even though I did theoretically watch them in order of release. I really loved the first movie. I watched it. I had it on DVD, and I would watch it a bunch. I saw this movie a few times, and for obvious reasons, didn't really want to keep going back to it. And I think the whole thing was, I don't know where to put my finger, because I'm not a car guy like you say, but I do like the idea of street racing culture, because it just, I guess when I was a teenager and growing up, it just seemed like, oh man, that seems cool. I have no idea what they're talking about, but that seems cool. And then I like thrillers, because as you guys have learned podcasting with me, there are random action thrillers that you're like you watch those movies? Like watching a whole bunch of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies that you probably had no idea I've seen a bunch of times. But just anything that has any kind of, thriller-esque stuff, any kind of competition, or, I can really get into it. And I think specifically for the first movie, teenage me really liked Jordana Brewster. So I wouldn't mind watching. That's one of the reasons I didn't mind watching that movie a lot. And also, for some reason, Paul Walker is a guy that draws me into whatever he's doing, rest in peace. But, he was...
I'm fascinated by you saying this after watching this movie.
Yeah. I don't know why. He's in one of my favorite movies of all time, in Varsity Blues, which I've watched way more than I would care to admit. It's just a stupid thing. I don't know. But I think my current love of the franchise really comes from seeing Fast Five and then just loving the insanity so much that I just wanted to see how much further they could take it. And they have exceeded expectations almost every time. The eighth one notwithstanding, that one wasn't too great. Probably because they had to redo stuff because of Paul Walker passing. And try and figure out, a story without Brian. But yeah, that's essentially it. I just have fun watching these movies. And I couldn't pinpoint a specific thing. Maybe I thought I was going to get into Cars when this first came out, and then never really did. I don't know, but yeah, this movie I have not watched as much, and it's I know why now. Going back to it for the second time this year, because I watched it when I got the Ultra HD 4K Blu-ray set that came out. But yeah, I'm as confused as you are, but for some reason I just get childlike excitement anytime I hear that a new one's coming out and what the plot might be.
Okay. Tia, what about you? Where are you coming from with this movie and the Fast and the Furious series as a whole?
I mean, this is the first Fast and Furious movie that I've ever watched. I knew that people.
Okay, before you go on, before you interrupt, Dan, have you ever seen a Fast and the Furious?
I've seen the first Fast and Furious movie and Hobbs and Shaw, and that's it.
Okay, because I haven't seen. This is the first time I've ever watched a Fast and the Furious movie because I wanted to see if we were all three of us. This is the first. So go ahead, Tia. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I knew people really love the franchise. That's why there's literally 20 of them, and they're gonna keep going. And apparently, they're gonna go to space at some point. So I guess very exciting. And I knew that obviously the death of Paul Walker was very tragic. I literally was in a bar when they announced it, and people were wondering what was going to happen to the franchise. And I was kind of saying this during the break where I almost forgot that this wasn't like Vin Diesel's franchise originally. Like, it was very much Paul Walker, and I think there was an uncertainty when he passed away what was going to happen with the franchise. So I mean, it's about cars and yada yada, but everyone I know, at least who say was a fan of the series, has all told me, and I believe Jawan himself has told me, that it's not even about cars anymore. And it's just ridiculous. And I remember seeing the trailer for Hobbs and Shaw when Idris Elba's character had like a literal exoskeleton that gave him powers, and I was like, all right, we're not functioning in reality anymore. Although now that I've seen Too Fast, Too Furious, I can say that the movie franchise seems like it never operated in reality, because there were some things happening in that movie that defied logic, physics, gravity.
Yeah. I will say, jumping in, that the first one is as close to reality of a street racing heist movie for combination DVD TVs you could actually put out there. There's a lot more of the craziness in terms of physics and car stunts. So not seeing that one first, I could see why you would come across the series has always been this crazy. But yeah, it is a stark difference between the first and second movie in terms of what they do with the car.
Not even just that, and before like you pass it off, Ant, but just this movie is just so like, some movies are made and they could be watched whenever and it doesn't matter. But this movie was like a time capsule for the time. It was so 2003 from like the bubble gum era of clothing and cars, like with the girls, to literally every 2 words was bro. I got you, bro.
Yeah.
And Devin Aoki.
Yeah.
Puts us in a very singular time period.
Yeah. She had 3-4 movies.
Yeah.
Devin Aoki. Yeah. It's very Entourage era.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it feels like it's the MTV version of the first movie would be my explanation.
That's a great way to explain it. It reminded me of just like every movie like that even wasn't about cars, but it's like we all have to come together, go team, yeah, woo, like dance movies and everything. It reminded me of it.
Yeah, this is the era of like You Got Served and those kinds of rules. Dan, what about you? Where are you coming from?
Okay, so you know how every journalist whenever they talk to a big time director, they always say, "Hey, Mr. Scorsese, what do you think of Marvel movies? And then Martin Scorsese just goes and like shits all over whatever. And the Fast and Furious franchise is right there. It's the same thing. Why does that get a pass?
It
That just goes right under the radar, doesn't it?
Right?
It always gets a pass, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dan, but it's like literally there's someone who I follow on Twitter who is a really big cinephile, right? Really into like the integrity of movies, and loves the Fast and Furious franchise. Like considers it almost like high cinema, and it's like I don't know what you're talking about, because it's like if you're gonna shit on Marvel for being cookie cutter or a formula or ruining film, like why is no one talking about the Fast franchise?
Okay. I will say, I do not consider them cinematic masterpieces as much as I love them. That is going a bridge too far. I just like to see car go boom and out three.
But that's the thing.
Three.
So like Scorsese and Coppola, they're all saying like, oh, like Marvel films are just like theme park rides. The Fast and the Furious is exactly that. It is way more of a theme park ride than anything else. And
yes,
listen, I get it. I don't hate it for that. All right. It just, for some reason, these movies get a pass. And as Tia said, they operate well out of the realm of possibility. I think there's a line in the Fast 9 where, is it like Tyrese's character is like, are we gods? Are we, like, we cannot die.
I will say, as probably the only one here that's seen that movie in theaters. The
3 times.
I had to throw that in there in theater.
That whole conversation, Dan, is actually pretty funny and self-aware when you hear the full conversation. Without spoiling exactly, but essentially he's like reminiscing about all the movies and basically going like, "Are we immortal? Like, we should be dead." Like,
I love Mark's position on this episode where he is on his heels the entire time.
But he hasn't made any like he hasn't tried to defend the movie. You know what I mean? Like, well, it's actually, if you think about it, he's understanding where we're coming from, and I give him credit.
Yeah. I just had to defend that one thing because the clip does not show what that whole conversation is about, and it's actually one of my favorite things in film in general. When a movie, a franchise becomes a little self-aware of itself. Rocky has it at points in like Balboa with some things, and that happened in the past. But that conversation is insane, but actually fits the movie. But yeah, sorry, you can continue.
So the only things I have written in my notes, because I didn't finish watching this movie, but I don't think I really missed anything. It's essentially apparently the NOS button makes you go into warp speed.
Yes.
Right? Like they show whenever they hit the NOS button, essentially everything just becomes a blur behind them. They must be going at Mach 10 when they hit the NOS button, right? But
they're really only going like 95.
Right? I think they hit like 120 at most.
The two things I read, the one is that I think this is the movie that exaggerates that the most, to be honest. And the second one is, I love the trivia that was in IMDb that was basically like, I don't understand why the actors' faces all have shock of how fast they're going once they hit the NOS button. Like, you're hitting the button to go faster. Why are you like, oh crap, it's going fast?
So I had the NOS button makes you go into warp speed. People just yelling in their cars to nobody. I guess just themselves.
It was like
a trope I realize I hate.
It's the worst.
It's like a video game.
There's a scene,
like when you're playing a video game and you're playing like a racing game, and they're like, "Yeah, kick it, hype it like them apples," which is an actual line from the movie.
It is. At one point, it's in the. I think it's when they're drag racing against the two goons, the henchmen, and Tyrese says, "I run these streets," and he's at least 300 feet behind the guy who he's racing. But
He's
who
getting
is
fucking hosed.
Yeah, right? He's getting absolutely just rocked in this race, but he's yelling to nobody. I run these streets. Like, who are you talking to? Are you just trying to pump yourself up? Is that what's going on? I have no idea. And the only other thing I have written down here is awful CGI effects, and that's
they're terrible.
That's pretty much like that sums up the movie, really.
Yeah.
So I am in the same camp. I have never seen a Fast and Furious movie before this one, and I'm going to assume, because I will not watch the others unless Mark sneaks another one in, that this movie is the blueprint for all of them that came before it and all the ones that came after. I hate everybody in this movie. Mark, you mentioned you just gravitate towards Paul Walker. He's an asshole in this
He's
fucking
terrible
movie.
in this movie. Yeah.
He's not even just bad. His character is awful. I don't know how they built this as the hero of the series, because I don't see it, to be honest.
He's not very charismatic in this movie.
Yeah, and you know what? Looking back, I mean, now R.I.P., but he's driving pretty recklessly in this movie.
Yeah.
Kind of puts it all together, doesn't it?
Yeah, he actually did the sliding scenes like at the end of the races. He did those stunts himself.
But just like, there's that scene where he's just really just trying to stare down Eva Mendes in this movie, and he's just driving, not looking at the road. Really, after what's happened, kind of puts a lot of things into perspective. I disliked him so much in this movie. That trope of everybody talking in their cars, which I guess it's hard to kind of create. I don't know how are you going to fill that air, I guess, because it's not like it's 1968 where you just shoot the bullet car chase without any dialogue. Now everybody needs to just have just constant blaring music or dialogue just ringing in their ears. So I get there's a attention span problem that you kind of just have to fill the void with just nonsense. But I hated that. I just didn't like it.
I will say this statement is going to be surprising, but this Paul Walker's character in this movie is a downgrade over the character in the first movie, which was supposed to be an undercover cop, but was so definitely a cop throughout entire movie.
He's so definitely still a cop in this movie. No one has a problem with talking about being undercover wherever they are. They have an open conversation in the club where the drug dealer is supposed to be about their time as cops. Him and Eva Mendes. Like, what are you guys doing? There's no secrecy. It's like, like she just like, I'm going to his boat to tell him about, just fire off a text, bitch.
It was 2003, and there was no texting, and if there was, you had to pay for it.
It's like $1.99.
You had to pay a premium.
Yeah. Ryan is the worst undercover cop in the history of cinema, and I love him for it.
Also, like, the transition. I don't know if you guys remember the one scene where, I don't know, there's like a cop randomly, and Ryan's like, Roman, don't. Like, in the worst acting possible, and Roman just like gets his gun out and starts shooting, and like the next scene is Roman like, man, I'm really hungry. Do you guys have food? And it's like, and no one mentions like, hey, that was bad. We're kind of supposed to be laying low and playing it cool, and you just like shot some you shot at a cop a bunch of times, like no consequences.
Yeah, look, they try to play that off with Ryan saying, if Roman wanted you dead, you'd be dead.
Right. Although he should, you can't tell me he didn't shoot the kill on that.
No.
And I'm just not into car culture.
Yeah.
Just really not. Like these they pull out these cars and like, ooh, these cars are hot, man. And I'm like, these cars look ugly as fuck.
Like, I was watching this, I'm like, what can I compare this to? And it's like, oh, wasn't this the like Pimp My Ride error where it's like you had to have the flashiest looking cars that made no sense whatsoever?
Yep.
Yeah, that's very similar.
One of the big issues I had with this movie is I just kept expecting Vin Diesel to show up.
Yes.
And he just never shows up. So I'm thinking like, okay, so they're doing, and I also don't know what the plot is to save my life for this movie. No clue what they were trying to do. But
How much did you watch?
I watched. I think I have 15 minutes left.
Okay.
I don't know what they were trying. Who were they? What were they doing? Were they trying to get a drug dealer?
They were trying to get Verone, who's like the drug kingpin in Miami.
Okay.
But they could never put two and two together. Like they could never put him and the money together. And this thing was supposed to be able to allow U.S. Customs for some reason.
Yeah, James Remar's team is U.S. Customs.
They're going to use this to be able to catch them, and they seem like the most incompetent cops on the planet.
Why did they need Paul Walker and Tyrese for this?
Well,
Yeah.
Well, the whole point was, if you watch the first movie, Bilkins is in the first movie, and it's shown to be like he's the cop that gets it, like knows how to catch these criminals.
Okay.
So that's the funny part is that when he comes in, to do all this, and then you just see how incompetent the customs agents are, and they're like, why wasn't the FBI in on this sooner?
I feel like they're all incompetent.
Yeah. Ava Mendes is stuck fucking this guy for 11 months.
Yeah.
Like, when are you guys going to make a move on him?
Yeah, exactly.
Gonna suck this guy's dick every day.
I thought that was the point of the movie, was like, how is Paul Walker gonna bang Eva Mendes?
And he doesn't really even get that close.
I think she kisses him on the boat, and then that's kind of it.
I thought it was going to happen when they were staring at each other, when he clearly wasn't looking at the road going like 100 miles per hour. Like, I thought it was just going to be one of those things where like they pulled off to the side and it's like, you know what, Roman, you can go ahead. We'll catch up. It's like, because it's such an early 2000s movies where it's like, fast cars and like hot babes. Like, because you knew they had to put in that scene of her in a bikini. There was no reason for her to just be in a scene in a bikini, just laying there. And it's like, no, we had to put that in. We had to put that in.
This is male gaze the motion picture.
Well, that was like around the same time as when did Swordfish come out? That was probably 2001, 2002, right?
It's right around the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they have that just gratuitous shot of Halle Berry naked. So that was a different time, I guess, where you just like, here's eye candy.
Yeah. Like Ava Mendes, like Ryan Gosling has deprived us all of Ava Mendes for the past decade. I didn't even realize.
She's gorgeous.
She hasn't been in a movie since.
Oh, she's fantastic.
But she hasn't been in a movie since like really The Place Beyond the Pines. That's 2012. She does like a cameo in a movie he directed in 2014.
Are you saying Ryan Gosling keeps her like locked away?
Katie Holmes.
He's pulling the Kevin Kline, Phoebe Cates thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, that she's just sort of semi-retired just to raise their kid or kids. I think at least they have one kid.
I wonder.
But yeah, she hasn't done a movie since.
Yeah, the Kevin Kline, Phoebe Cates, good comparison.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's like a mutual thing. Like I don't want to do this anymore. I'll just stay home and you do your thing.
If she's happier raising their child, and I'm sure that kid, she has 2 children with Ryan Gosling, and I'm sure those kids are going to be ridiculously good looking. So why wouldn't you want to spend more time with kids that are not ugly? Yeah, I mean, the more power to her. So if she's happy, great. But Ryan Gosling deprived us of more Eva Mendes. Shame on him.
Yeah,
shame on him.
Yeah,
shame on you, Ryan Gosling. I'm glad you never were Batman.
I was watching this movie, and when James Remar is putting the team together, he gets Paul Walker, and then Paul Walker goes, "There's only one person I can trust to do this type of job. Oh, it's going to be Vin Diesel."
It feels like it's going to be Vin Diesel, yeah.
Right.
It does.
And yeah, it's not Vin Diesel. Like, okay, so he'll probably come in when he and Tyrese need backup, or like you got to call the family in. And I was waiting for Vin Diesel, and I was waiting for someone to say family.
It's the fun I'm having over here is that you have the history of the 6 movies after this. To put onto this movie when all this was a cash grab by Universal.
All I know about this stuff is from you. I know nothing outside of what you tell me, Mark.
Yeah.
This is your fault, Mark.
Yeah, that's why this movie is at the bottom of the list.
That's okay. But essentially, I'm holding this movie down because of how you built everything else up.
Yeah, because the rest of the movies are great. Well, except for
Well, wait. Well, then so you say everything's great except for these two movies. So,
well, the fourth one was Vin Diesel trying to what's the word I'm looking for? Resurrect the series in his vision.
okay.
So it's kind of slow, despite having probably the best villain in any of the movies. It's kind of more about reintroducing the characters the way Vin Diesel wants them to be, which is why if I told you that Ludacris's character in this movie comes back and he's a nerd.
Oh, I heard about that. Like someone mentioned how when the more the movies go on, the characters pick up these other traits that make no sense to the character, and it's not questioned.
His character comes back and is a complete nerd compared to like running Miami street racing that he's supposed to be doing in this movie. Sure. And then Roman's character comes back as like a moron, but probably wanted just to be the comic relief of the movie. But yeah, that like two is such a where they were just trying to cash in. They offered Vin Diesel $25 million, but he didn't like the script, and then he went and did Triple X, which one would have been better for him? Who knows? But yeah, and then basically they do Tokyo Drift, which has nobody in it for most of the movie, except Dom does show up at the end, so that makes the second one the only movie without Dom in it. And then he gets his his Producers Guild license, and for Fast and Furious comes out, the fourth one, and then it's a whole different series after that in Vin Diesel's vision, if I guess is the way to say it. So right. It's kind of funny that you watch the one that is probably the most out of sync with the rest of them, which makes it hilarious to me. And that how much they tried, how much you can see Vin's grip on it once all the characters come back.
Right. And you kind of almost make him sound like a totalitarian dictator, but in your opinion, he changes this for the good, for the better.
Yeah, I will never say that his decision to do it was a bad thing, because it's one of those things where I think he got what the movies could be. Like, it wasn't going to be pop like pop culture, bubble gum stuff that's a lot of neon that's in this movie. It was much more about, let's just show off insane cars and let's put them in let's make us like international spies and put us in stupid situations.
Too Fast, Too Furious from 2003 is directed by John Singleton, who directed Boys in the Hood, first African-American nominated for Best Director and youngest ever nominated in the category at 24 years old. He also directed Poetic Justice, Higher Learning, Rosewood, Shaft, and Four Brothers. Stars Paul Walker, Tyrese Gibson, Cole Hauser, Eva Mendes, Chris Ludacris Bridges, Tom Barry, James Remar, David Aoki, Omori Nolasco, Michael Ealy, and Jin Ao Yang. Has an IMDb score of 5.9 and a Rotten Tomato score of 36%. Budget $76 million. Box office $127 million domestic, $236 worldwide. In comparison, the first one made $144 million domestic, $207 million worldwide on a budget of $38 million. Just about half the budget of this one. You guys want to get into the plot?
Yeah.
I'll take that as a yes. And Tia, why don't you tell us about Tia and do Dan's part for this week?
Hi guys, how are you doing? It's me, Tia. No, again, thanks for having me on. I am the content manager for Geek Vibes Nation. I also do a podcast with my friend Brittany for GVN called The Top 10 with Tia, where we do top 10 lists. Recently, last month, we did the top 10 canceled shows that are still worth watching. And so, we just are having a lot of fun. We appreciate all the support that we can get. GeekVibesNation.com is where you can find all my articles, and Geek Vibes Podcast is the name of the YouTube channel, where I just posted my interview with Og, who you may know as Simon from The Walking Dead, Pike from Snowpiercer, and Trevor Phillips from GTA 5.
And we are going to take a quick break, and you guys are going to listen to some messages from friends of the podcast, and we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Ken M.
Padawan J.
Coach Duffy. From the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour podcast. Every week, the ODPH is talking sports, movies, TV, comics, and more. It's always a parlay of topics on each episode. You can find the ODPH on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and wherever you find great podcasts, such as the one you're listening to right now. Don't forget to check out OchoDuroParlayHour.com, where you can find the links to all of the ODPH social media accounts, links to the bands whose music you hear each week on the show, hashtag 607 podcast info, and parlay points, our companion blog section of the show. Thanks for listening to the ODPH. Now get back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
Welcome, travelers. Seems like you're looking for a story. Well, I got one for you. It involves adventure, friendship, and all sorts of...
Earl, why don't you tell him about that time I stole that big-ass melon?
Yeah, I was going for more...
Or you could tell him about the time I kicked her ass, Earl.
I wouldn't ever tell him.
Do I need to get my ref gear on?
Okay, everyone, shut up. Now come with me as I tell you a story from afar. Hey everybody, my name's David. I'm the DM for From Afar Podcast. From Afar Podcast is all about four friends separated by distance, but brought together by adventure. Hope you all stop by and give us a listen. Thanks.
And welcome back. Now it's time to get into the plot for Too Fast, Too Furious. We open on the most 2000s version of the Universal logo that transform into some chrome rims and then transition into real chrome rims as a truck full of car bunnies, which I'm not sure is an official term, but I've made it up, place some road closure signs on some empty streets. I don't think they have the authority to do so, but they do it anyway. And we cut to some day-glow cars and motorcycles as we have street racing meetup set up by Chris Ludacris Bridges himself. And he promises tonight is going to be an all-timer. We get some hero shots of some scantily clad girls in the cars, and this could be called male gaze the motion picture. Then three racers get ready to street race. But Luda says they can't race without a fourth, which he will back down from 4 minutes later. And he tells them he's got a guy if they don't care who it is. So he gives a call to Paul Walker and tells him to get there in 4 minutes, which I'm not trying to bring logic into this entire movie, but that's got to be physically impossible.
Right. You got to get dressed, start the car.
Yeah.
He's not 2 minutes away.
He's in a towel when he gets the call. So that's going to take a minute and a half to get dressed, right?
Conservatively, yes.
And if he doesn't know where his keys are, that's going to take him a minute or so. You know, it's a thing. You can't get anywhere in 4 minutes. I could barely get at the end of my driveway in 4 minutes. That's not happening. It's a long driveway, though. Paul Walker then speeds over to the meetup as Ludacris's Act a Fool plays from one of the car's speaker systems, meaning that in this universe, both Ludacris and Tej exist.
Oh, I
just
didn't even
happened to
notice
look
that.
at
Yeah. No one ever says, "Hey, Tej, you look like Ludacris." Anyone ever tell you that? Does that ever happen, Mark? Does anybody ever tell Tej, "Hey, you look like Ludacris"?
No, this would be the movie where they would do it because
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, the series isn't over yet, Ann. So.
Yeah, they could totally do like an Ocean's 12 thing where like they set up a heist with Tej pretending to be Ludacris.
Oh, I won't put it past this movie.
Well, I mean, if Universal, if you're listening, I will write this movie for you. Center around Ludacris Bridges.
Can I be honest with you?
What's that?
You just blew my goddamn mind. Because I didn't even think that Ludacris existing both as the rapper and the character would be a thing.
This is universe breaking. Does Paul Walker also exist? Who knows?
Right.
I mean, it's like
through 2017, I suppose.
It's Tej's secret identity. You know, by night he's like a streetcar organizer, you know, for the races and everything, and during the day he's like a multi-million/billionaire musician. You know, his passion is just organizing illegal street races.
Yes,
I like it.
I don't know if that's the best cover-up though.
Probably not.
But it's the early 2000s, so it doesn't need to make sense.
Draw as much attention to myself as possible.
and I will let you know, Ant, that the character of Brian has outlived Paul Walker. He is still in the movies. But
that's true, right?
Yeah.
He rides off into the sunset.
Yep, and then in it's either 8 or 9, they're like, "Hey, wait, we can't start the barbecue without Brian." And then a blue car pulls into the driveway.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I hate it.
I feel like that's sad and almost a little I know that they're doing it, I guess, as a way of honoring him, but it almost feels mildly disrespectful. It's like, I don't know. That's just feels icky.
Don't they use Paul Walker's brother, right?
In 7, yes.
Okay, like kind of fill in, I guess.
Yeah.
That would make me feel kind of shitty as the brother. Like, you only want me because I vaguely look like my brother.
And they were like,
you
yes.
don't want me. Right? Yeah, we don't want you. We want your brother, essentially.
Do you want to keep getting his royalty checks?
Are they like blackmailing him essentially? You're gonna do this and you're gonna like it. Vin Diesel coming down hard.
So Walker eventually shows up wearing a long white t-shirt like he just brought it from home or something, and he immediately raises the stakes of the race and tells one of the racers who doesn't want to up the ante that he can leave, but Luda didn't want to race with just 3, so I'm under the impression that this is a work the entire time, right?
Ooh, yeah.
You know,
they're being
they're like pool sharks, right?
Yeah. And the best part is that Suki seems to have a relationship with Tej, but yet he is scamming her out of money in this.
Yeah, I can't believe she's on the poster because she is in and out of this movie. They act like she's gonna have a bigger role, and she does not have a role that plays any part. She's just there to drive the car at the end. But eventually they all agree and they get in their cars as Eva Mendes gives Walker the eyes, and the race begins as they race through the streets of Miami. And the cinematography is a choice, to say the least. And I remember how much I hate the trope of people talking to themselves in cars. And this whole scene is incredibly garish. Someone compared it to Speed Racer, and I can't unsee it.
It is very, cartoony video games. That's all I thought about. I've played racing games where it's, the cutscene in a racing game is something similar. Or in you're playing a racing game and they're shouting out random things. It's like, okay, that's one thing for, say, a racing video game. But for a movie, it's like, try and put yourself... I guess we all just randomly shout things out while we're driving alone in our cars.
Yeah. I'm just singing to Carly Rae Jepsen. I don't know. Trying to think of something.
Yeah, I think it's just basically trying to get the illusion of trash talking in a competition where drag racers are probably not saying anything in their cars.
Yeah, it's filling the void because you can't have a 4-minute street race without anybody saying anything. It's just not in this day and age. Like I said, in Bullet 1968, you could have just the sounds of the engines going, but people have a short attention span in 2002. They're all hopped up on 4 Loko before it got regulated.
Bringing it back.
By the way, since you mentioned it a few times, did you catch Brian's nickname?
Bullet.
In this? Yeah.
Is it Bullet? I didn't even
they call him Bullet.
And a few people know that. The one girl knows him as Bullet and still chooses to race against him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she's overly confident or just dumb.
She might be dumb because she places second. Her car gets totaled, and she's pretty excited about it. And I'm pretty sure there wasn't a second place prize.
I don't think there was.
Pretty sure it was a winner take all. Because why would there be second place winnings for a street race?
Right. It's not a fantasy football league.
She's pretty excited that she's now out at least $10,000 for her total car.
Yeah. There's if someone brings up in the trivia, which you'll bring up why this part gets crazy, is that the damage they'll take doing the final part of this race is way more than the winnings. So who would actually do the final part of the race?
Yeah.
Well, the one guy, the Spanish guy, he's the only smart one.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, I'm cutting my losses. I know I'm not going to make that.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of back and forth between Walker's Brian, Suki, played by Devin Aoki, and 2 other guys throughout the race. Eventually culminates into a jump over a raised drawbridge with Brian jumping over one of the dude's cars mid-flight and cruising to victory. This decision to break into the bridge control room and raise the bridge on Tej's part is reckless. Like, people could have died in this in this stunt. And somehow Brian makes the jump without any damage to his car, and Suki manages to come in second with incredible damage to her car. And she's excited, though, and I'm not sure that there was a prize for second place.
Yeah, the reason Tej does what he did, if as you learn a little later in the movie, is because he runs a body shop. So these cars damaging themselves on the jump is business for him.
Yeah, and it's he deals with bridges because he's Ludacris Bridges, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's why they call him Ludacris Bridges.
He's also very good at being a creep to Suki. Suki, is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does a good job there.
Yeah.
Why don't you bring that body over? See what we could do with it. She's like, well, you better be careful because I might. Yeah. But that's what he wants. He literally just said, bring your body over.
Yeah, he wants to see what they could do with that front end.
Oh yeah, what's under the hood?
It's the worst dialogue / pickup lines for that time. Like, it's just so incredibly corny, and it's like, who wrote this? Who writes this? I mean, oh god, it was so cringy.
I really hope he didn't write that line.
Oh, the trivia says that there's a lot of improv, so who knows?
Oh boy, that's not very smooth for someone as smooth as he is, I believe.
Yeah. And then we get like 4 or 5 shots of Ludacris just nodding in approval in the crowd.
Oh, that's my favorite shot in the whole movie.
I think they reused that same shot like 2 or 3 times.
I want to see. I didn't get a chance to search for it. I want to see if there's a GIF like the one that involves the Star Trek people, which is just him and Brian nodding back and forth on repeat.
Yeah, it's like, so Brian like finishes the race, stops the car, and looks at Ludacris, and Ludacris gives him the nod. And then Brian gets out of the car, looks over at Ludacris, and Ludacris gives him the same exact nod.
There's a moment I messaged you guys where Ludacris and Paul Walker are talking to each other, but Ludacris
right at the beginning, right before the race.
Yes, so he's looking off screen and he's talking to someone else. He must be. He's not talking to Paul Walker.
They're both like looking away from each other and away from everybody. Like I said, I think that this is a con job. I'm thinking, even though.
So he's pretending that they don't know each other. Then
that's what it feels like. I mean, he obviously has to assume that they obviously have to assume that they know each other because he calls him. But
exactly,
yeah, it feels like it's a work that they're. That guy mysteriously tapped out of this because he's got to work late. So I'm going to call my buddy, and it seems
I was just confused. Like, does he know he's not talking directly? He's not looking at Paul Walker,
right? Because Walker is renting the houseboat from him, is he not?
Oh, I don't remember.
Right? Because I got confused because they have a whole scene where they apparently they have to make sure everybody knows in the audience that Tyrese is also renting a houseboat from Ludacris, and then like Paul Walker is sleeping in the houseboat in the point where Eva Mendes comes and shows up. So I was confused by that, but apparently they both are. I don't know. It's of no consequence to the movie, but I was just confused. And I guess Suki's prize is Short King Tej because they have some dialogue about fucking each other. A little classier than what I just said.
There was a little bit more like innuendo-ish.
Yeah, those double entendres, as the French would say. And then Brian some sort of hand cannon that shoots a grappling hook into Brian's car and fries the electrical in the car, bringing his car to a stop, and he is arrested. And I felt like this was going to be the thing in the movie. This felt like Remar was going to be the villain to me. Like, this felt like a villain move. Like, oh man, how are we going to street race when these cops got grappling hooks that do this to us?
Grappling hooks.
This is changing the game. We got to figure out how to fight this. This is fascism, Maybe it was better
essentially
written.
What it is, I guess.
But it didn't wind up. It comes back at the end.
Pretty good technology for the time.
Yeah, I thought it would have been cool. Like, oh man, now they're shutting down street racing with this gun. Everybody's trying to flee, and everybody just gets taken in because they got several of these guns. That'd have been cool.
Would you watch the 11th movie if Vin Diesel and the family take down the ruling class, Ant?
If they ate the rich, yeah.
But they are the rich, right? Because they're multimillionaires.
If Vin Diesel and the Torettos bring socialism to America, like they dismantle capitalism and they replace it with like socialized medicine or something like that, I'd watch that. Yeah, 100%.
So are they the group to do that?
Who else? It's not those Democrats.
What if in the third movie they just like go to like Ukraine and stop Putin and everything? Would you watch it then?
I mean,
nah.
You wouldn't want to watch Vin Diesel and the family in like Soviet era
I get the
Russia.
appeal, but I'm probably gonna say no.
I could definitely see that happening though.
Yeah.
With current events, it's kind of weird saying this, but they're taking on villains much more dangerous to the world in more recent movies.
Charlize Theron's haircut.
Yeah, exactly. It's Charlize Theron's haircuts and the braids. Bigger villains.
Bigger villains in the world. I feel like they've kind of set up where this crew can do anything, right?
Yeah.
They could do the impossible. So that would be interesting.
Cars on the moon is how it has to end.
Right. I guess you could do. Yeah. Why not bring them into just put them at January 6th, where they just mow in.
Now?
Yeah.
They're driving up the steps of the Capitol.
Right. Just mowing down protesters, I guess.
They have like a big net driving behind them, and they're just like scooping everybody up.
Right.
Okay, yes. If they don't go to the moon, giving this team a time machine, I'm 100% on board. I will watch that movie. If they start traveling through time, solving problems in history, yeah. If you throw in time machines and time travel, I'm always there, regardless of the movie. But yeah,
I think I would be interested just to see, like, wow, they really did it. My God, they did it.
They stopped multiple attacks on the world. They went to space. What else is left, Justin? Time travel.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that is the final frontier, pretty much.
Yeah, we got to go back. Something happens in the first movie that we need to stop.
They're the heroes we need. We just don't deserve.
This is a perfect vehicle, pun unintended, to like do the very meta joke of giving them a time machine that is a DeLorean, right? Yeah. This is the perfect franchise for it.
Yeah. And then they would make a quip about it, I'm sure, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, the DeLorean is actually coming back. The DeLorean estate has just announced that they're like doing a new version of the car. So perfect timing for the Fast and the Furious franchise to pick one of those bad boys up.
Yeah. It'll be like, there'll be a joke about, does this thing go 88 miles an hour? And Tyrese will be like, it'll go a lot faster than that.
See them drive a Tesla.
Look, Universal, I can do this. Give me the franchise. I will write it.
I mean, I'm sure you could be just as ludicrous.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Ludicrous Bridges?
That one was intended, for sure. I think, I don't know. I think the whole issue is I can't get, and I love action movies as much as the next person, but I can't get on board with some of the things that they do here. You're catching people flying through the air with a car that's flying through the air, and this is a guy who really likes people who dress in certain in spandex and do these crazy things, but I think that's pretty much set within the parameters of that universe. We're still trying to stick to reality of some kind in Fast and the Furious, because isn't that true?
What if they were wearing spandex instead of West Coast Shopper t-shirts?
But it's too late for that now. Because you've already established this canon where they're real people.
Yeah. I think they probably just should have shown that someone was a robot at one point, and then everything else goes out the window. It's like, okay, Ludacris is a robot. It's fine. Everything else makes sense now.
I remember seeing in I don't know which movie it is, but there was a trailer where the cars bring down like a jumbo jet.
Oh, you mean the end of the 6th movie?
Is that you sure?
Yeah.
But what is that? That's not real.
Look, Dan, we could get into it all day. We're here to talk about Too Fast, Too Furious.
That's true. But okay, yeah, you're right. You're 100% right.
We don't have the time, Dan, to set out the permissions of this universe. We don't know. It's a movie by movie thing.
That's true.
The rules keep
Because
changing.
in the second one, it's very much just, it's very much based in reality.
Yeah, except for the last 3 minutes when they jump. There just so happens to be a jump, but we'll get into it. Later, they have Brian in an interrogation room, and Remar starts reading Brian his own file. Then Agent Bilkins show up. He was in the first movie. And they bring Brian into a briefing. Start going through the case of a Miami drug dealer by the name of Verone, telling Brian that they want him to pose as a driver for this drug dealer so that they can bring the dealer down, and that they have an undercover customs agent posing as the dealer's girlfriend. They basically give Brian an ultimatum, help them with the case, where they're going to charge him with a list of crimes that he committed from the first one. And they introduce him to another agent that will act as another driver, but it's obvious that the guy doesn't know enough about cars to pass any sort of smell test. Brian says he won't do it unless he gets to pick the other driver.
Yeah, that guy in this scene is more cop than Brian, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
I just love in movies like this where it's like, I make the ultimatum, I got a guy, and it's just so cliche. Yeah. I'm not going unless I can bring my own guy. And it's like, okay.
You're the cops. You have the final say in anything.
Yeah. It's the Armageddon effect, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
I need my team.
Right.
Assemble.
We have these 10 highly trained astronauts who know what they're doing. No, I need these guys who are alcoholics and drug dealers.
They don't know about drilling, man.
Yeah, none of them know about drilling.
They don't know about driving. So Brian and Bilkins go to Barstow to watch Roman Pierce, played by Tyrese, participate in a demolition derby. What kind of people do you think go to a demolition derby in the middle of Barstow, California? It's got to be
cops.
Classiest people. Yes, also cops. Roman seems to be on house arrest, despite the fact that he is not currently in his house.
Yeah, I was just going to say, how is that? He can only be 100 yards from his house?
They do explain it.
Okay.
His house is apparently his trailer, which is in the parking lot.
I was going to say he lives in his car.
So if you want to go down, this was the only fun thing I found, but if you want to go down like a rabbit hole of the goofs on IMDb with people being really into cars and saying that certain car sounds wouldn't be in the cars that are on screen is insane.
Fuck those people.
Yeah, exactly. They mentioned that the rules of house arrest is that you need to be in a stationary house so you don't try to leave the state. So the fact that he's in a trailer that can move is completely against the rules.
This movie falls apart right there.
Yeah, that's it.
It's saying something when, what Ant-Man and the Wasp was more realistic of what house arrest is than Too Fast, Too Furious. Just saying.
Yeah. So Roman seems to be on house arrest, and he and Brian have some history. So Brian goes to approach Roman, but Roman calls him a pig, and then they start fighting, wrestling around a dirt parking lot like a couple schoolyard bullies. And after the fight, they get right into each other's faces, close enough to kiss, but unfortunately they don't. And instead, Brian just tells him he wants to come to Miami to work on a job in exchange for a clean slate.
That would have been an interesting twist.
So a lot of the Letterboxd reviews that I was looking through, a lot of them say this is like the gayest movie ever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that undertone is what's going on. Okay, I could see it.
Especially between the two of them. There's a lot of homoerotic vibes.
Right, because they have that built up, just get it on already, get a room, get over it. So they definitely have that camaraderie, I guess.
Yeah. So they go to Miami, Roman without his ankle bracelet, which for some reason they had to make a very specific point to show that. And Brian with a new fit of a West Coast Choppers shirt and a pair of jorts, like he's a sixth grader that just went to JCPenney for back to school. And Bilkins takes them to a hangar where they meet up with Ava Mendez, who is the undercover agent Monica Fuentes. And she's just so casual about meeting with the feds for some undercover. The feds unveil the new chariot rides for Brian and Roman, which I guess in some circles are hot, but I think they're quite ugly. They get
They're
the cars,
so ugly. They're so
they really are. I don't get it. I just don't get. I don't. I can appreciate a car that I think looks nice, but I guess in the circles that enjoy cars, me and them don't see eye to eye. They get in the cars. Monica and Brian head over to the dealer's house. The dealer's name is Verone, and on the ride, Brian can't help but just be really unprofessional with Monica, which I can't necessarily fault him because it is Eva Mendes, but at the same time, he's being super careless. Even so far as doing a move where he recklessly stares at her as he drives over 100 miles per hour without looking at the road. R.I.P. Paul Walker. They make it to Verone's house with a whole bunch. I'm just gonna, yeah.
Jen got very upset with me about that.
Okay.
Because I mentioned something along the same. I was like, well, he wasn't paying attention. But how are you gonna say that? You make it sound like he had it coming. Like, I'm not saying he had it coming, but probably should have been a little more careful. I can't believe you.
Doesn't that seem like almost? I'm trying to think of what other movie something like that reminds me of. I don't know. I'm getting very Talladega Nights vibe from this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just lucky he had an empty stretch of road there, because he was just gonna plow into the back of some sedan.
I was gonna say that's very inconsiderate for, say, single mom who's carting around her 5 kids to ballet or some shit like that.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, just like you're having a shit day, right? You're late dropping the kids off, and then Paul Walker is trying to impress Eva Mendes.
Yeah. Sorry, I sliced through your Corolla like a knife through butter, but I was really trying to get into this chick's pants.
You get it, right?
Yeah, you understand.
They make it to Verone's house with a whole bunch of other drivers for some sort of trial. Verone comes out of the house and tells the drivers his Ferrari was stolen, and they impounded it, and there's a package in the glove box that he needs retrieved. So the race is on, and Brian and Roman race the other drivers to the impound lot as the audition begins. What they don't know is each of their cars has been tracked by GPS that the cops are tracking. But the cops think that they're running, because they didn't think that... I don't understand this part. They've given these guys these cars with the specific idea that they're going to be driving for Verone. And the first time they take these cars out, they assume these guys are just fleeing.
Yeah, again, total incompetence from top to bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cops think they're running, but during this race, one of the other drivers just straight up dies as he gets crushed by an 18-year-old.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I think him and the guy that crashes into him are both dead.
Yeah, and then we just kind of move on with our lives like that didn't just happen. And Brian acts like a real asshole throughout this entire drive, even driving backwards at some point. It's at this moment that I realize I hate everyone in this movie. And Roman and Brian make it to the impound lot first and find the Ferrari. And Tyrese takes the opportunity to pop his shirt off so he can break the window with his hand. I mean, you know what? If I looked like Tyrese without my shirt on, like that would be the default.
Right.
I'd be putting on shirts.
I could see the discussion back and forth with him and John Singleton. So when I get out of the car, I take my shirt off so I break the window. Right? No, you don't have to take your shirt off. It's gonna it's fake glass. You can just punch it. But take my shirt off, right, John? Just take it off, right?
Well, like you said, there was a lot of improv.
Yeah, it's like who?
So.
Yeah.
It's like, who made that decision? Was that in the script, or was that something that Tyrese was like, no, this is gonna happen?
But again, I get it. I would do the same thing. It would be it would be in my contract how Vin Diesel can't lose a fight. Dan Aquino has to have his shirt off for 90% of the film.
Yeah.
I just had the feeling that they shot the scene 5 times, and each time he took his shirt off, and if the director didn't want it in there, he was just like, you know what? Sure, we're losing light. I'm done.
Right. It's kind of like that. It's like that Mitch Hedberg joke is like, why is it corn on the cob? Because that's like that should be the default.
Yeah.
It should be corn off the cob. So it shouldn't be it should be Tyrese and then Tyrese with a shirt on. That should happen.
Right.
It's like the default is Tyrese shirtless. Shirtless
right.
Tyrese.
If he's wearing a shirt, something's wrong.
Yeah. It's off, as they would say in animation circles, it's off model.
Correct. Yes.
It's like the Simpsons when they wear their Sunday bests to church. That's the off model Simpsons. And that's Tyrese when he's wearing a shirt.
I like that. I'm sure he likes that too.
Yeah, I'm sure the ladies like it too. But the door's open anyway.
Yeah.
That's right. I don't think I'm making huge assumptions to assume that that's an appealing look for Tyrese. He works hard on it for that assumption, you know.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it was nice. It's like, you know, we have one moment where the rest is like, here's Eva Mendes, here's Suki, here's this, here's that, you know,
Right.
here's all these girls with, like, you know, no clothes on whatsoever.
Yeah, it's one for the ladies.
To be fair, you guys also get jeez. You guys also get the undercover agent who has his shirt ripped off in the interrogation scene. So you're welcome, I guess.
This is feminism in 2003.
Yeah,
This is what counted for feminism.
There you go. Enjoy, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you, I guess.
Yeah, I think in 2003, just a shirtless Tyrese makes this movie pass the Bechdel test.
Sure. Well, I don't see why not.
It was very low effort back then. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like we'll sprinkle like one thing.
Right, the lowest effort at that time, because you're getting those really bad. You're getting like road trip comedies. A lot of Tom Green was thrown in there, so you're getting bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, we've talked about on this podcast a lot, just how the 2000s are a cesspool of everything from fashion to gender politics to
Music.
to music. Yeah, it's bad. We took an enormous step back in the 2000s, and we're still trying to claw our way back out of the hole it dug in terms of pop culture.
It really felt, and I've gone back and watched. Remember the Cameron Diaz, Charlie's Angels, and everything, and it felt like a moment between say 2001 and maybe 2005, 2006, where like people forgot how to make movies. Like, you know, there's a lot of good movies before that time, and there's a lot of good movies after that time. And for some reason, everything around that small error was like, no, terrible.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
And
I don't know.
Too Fast, Too Furious is right there.
Yeah, it's a bad era. Bad era for a lot of things.
Mark.
Yeah.
That's all he's got to say about it. So they search the car and find the package, and the cops show up. So Roman shoots at them, and they make their escape. Take it back to the drug dealer, Dennis Reynolds, and hand over the package. And Tyrese asks for some food, and Brian starts scamming on drug dealer Dennis's girlfriend. So Monica takes them to a poolside table, and they wait for Verone, who shows up and opens the package to reveal the only thing in the package was a cigar, which is comically large, and the actor that plays Verone never looks comfortable with it. They go for a walk to discuss the job. He needs them to drive something to the Keys, and he's offering them $100,000. But Tyrese can't help but push Verone and says he should give them each $100,000. So Verone then invites them to the club that night to discuss things further. Then he catches Roman trying to make off with his cigar cutter. So they leave and head to Tej's garage, which is also a beach party location where he runs jet ski races. Brian asks one of Tej's mechanics to look over the cars they got from the cops. Then Roman takes the opportunity to ogle the girls in bikinis. Brian then gets Tej to let Roman crash on his houseboat. For some reason, just spends a lot of time just deciding how these guys are sleeping. Jimmy the mechanic.
Well, because
Go ahead.
they can't have any like underlying like I don't even know how to like explain it. You know, this is the era of you know, no homo, bro.
I was just about to say, like, it might be just because they were like, we have to try and set some parameters for this relationship. So we have to make it a point to say that they are not sleeping in the same place, right? It's a whole plot point.
And it's so much effort in a movie that like could be spent elsewhere. Why are we spending this much time on this?
Definitely.
Well, like Ant said, they really kind of dropped the ball with like how they handled. What were you saying, Ant? Basically, like same-sex scenes and characters. Like they really dropped the ball on that in that area.
Yeah. I think they were just trying to make a point to say like these guys ain't gay.
Right. They're macho men.
They're sleeping in two different houseboats. They may look like the same houseboat.
It's like in case you were thinking it, no, and it's like no one was thinking it until actually made it apparently obvious.
Listen, our one character walks around without his shirt off in front of no women, but that doesn't mean he likes dudes, all right?
Yeah. He's like, we need to try and have him objectify women more in the next scene.
Exactly,
so they get
to make up for
Right.
it. Yeah.
So he's going to drop this line where he calls this a hoasis.
Oh, that's right, a hoasis.
That was so terrible. I wonder if that was an ad-lib line.
Oh, I hope
was
so.
Again, was that in the script or was that ad-libbed?
I hope that was Tyrese. Like, I got this one.
Say no more, fam.
I like to believe that most of Tyrese's lines were ad-lib.
Like he came to set and he's like, man, I got such a great line. I was thinking, I wrote it down last night and it's gonna kill. That's really what I hope.
They were like,
they mentioned in the trivia.
They left it in.
Yeah, they mentioned in the trivia. We already passed this scene, but when they're doing the tester on the audition, when he says, "Why am I chasing the cat?" It was like an improv line of a song, like a line from a song or something that Tyrese liked. So he just said it in that scene, and they kept it in. So that's why I believe 90% of his dialogue was ad lib.
Oh, very interesting.
Could be possible.
Yep. So then Jimmy the mechanic then mentions that the cars are wired with a very advanced GPS. And
wait.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I need to cut in because this scene, when they were talking about like the GPS, sounded like, again, because it's 2003, right? Where no one really knew what the concept of GPS was. So it's like they almost put in as like a sponsored ad for the audience as they were watching. Like, this GPS is this, and this is how it's worked. Wow, I didn't know that's how it was done. Tell me more.
Right.
Well, as you could see, and I'm like sitting there like, what are they explaining all of this for? And it's like, oh, it's 2003. They like really have to explain the concept of GPS.
You mean like having ads in the middle of the movie, like Snap-on tools?
Yep.
That Brian makes the point. Oh, he's got all these Snap-on tools.
So Brian asks Jimmy to disable the trackers. They then notice a couple of Verone's guys staking them out. So Roman sets their car on fire, almost doing an Axel Foley impression. I very felt like this was the banana in the tailpipe scene from Beverly Hills Cop. They go to meet with the cops, and Roman and James Remar immediately get into a fight over Roman shooting at Remar, which is understandable. Then Roman winds up eating Remar's sandwich as Brian lays out what they know, which isn't much more than they're going to do a run for Verone, and then Monica may be compromised, which she 100% is because she's been undercover for 11 months, so there's no way she's not fucking Verone at this point.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that's the one place where he was like a gentleman? Oh, we're going to wait until you're ready. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Take your time.
It's been 11 months, but take your time.
I've been on 50 dates. It's perfectly fine.
You're living in my house rent free. I don't expect anything from you.
Yeah.
I'm just a drug dealer that doesn't pressure women into sex.
Good guy, Verone.
What a gentleman.
Mercilessly kills others, but hey, he respects a woman's boundary. He's not a monster.
But you better hold that cop's mouth shut while this rat eats through his chest.
Which was so random. Such a random thing. It felt as if someone was doing random research on medieval torture, and they're like, what if we include this in the movie? And it's like, wait, what?
Boss, are you sure you want to do that? That's weird stuff. I saw it on on the History Channel. I want to do this. I'm the boss.
Yeah.
It's like someone saw.
I want to put it to the test.
It's like someone saw Snatch, and they had the whole things about the pigs will eat basically anything if you starve them.
Right.
And they're like, oh man, we need a cool animal thing. So let's research some weird, crazy animal stuff. That's what they came off with.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's believable.
After the brief, Brian and Roman realize they're sort of in over their head, and they need an exit strategy, which will include 2 cars that aren't being tracked by the cops. So they set up a street race with 2 of the other drivers from the Verone audition, and the winner takes both cars. And it's a team barrel race. So Roman starts off and gets absolutely hosed by the challenger. So when Brian gets to go, he's already well behind the other guy. So he has to wind up playing chicken with the other guy as he's on his way back, and the other guy chickens out and winds up spitting out, giving Brian enough time to catch up, and he winds up winning the race with an extra nitrous boost at the end.
And that great CG of showing them going back and forth near the end.
and Brian and Roman drive off with 2 new cars. Can you imagine just handing over your car after you lose a race?
No, never.
Like, fuck no. That's not happening.
And they have guns. Like, no, it would be one of those things where I don't remember that happening.
Yeah.
I'm not paying.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I don't want to play anymore.
So Brian and Roman go to the club and meet with Verone at Oasis, as Roman calls it, and they meet up with Monica and Brian. And Monica just talk openly about being cops in a club they expect Verone to be at any moment, on the top of just openly flirting with each other.
My favorite part of this scene is it's Tyrese, Eva Mendes, and Paul Walker, and Paul Walker and Eva Mendes are flirting. Tyrese sees Verone is there, goes up to Eva Mendes and Paul Walker, tells them he's here, don't look. Next shot is of all of them staring at Verone.
I thought you were going to mention the part in the scene where they have their little thing, and then he just looks at Eva Mendes and goes, "I gotta piss."
For some reason, I thought that was hilarious because it's basically like in grade school, right? You're like, oh, she's here. Where is she? Right behind you. Don't make it look. Don't make it obvious. And then you just stare right back at them. That's exactly what this was.
Yeah.
And he even waves.
They get summoned by Verone and they are brought to the lamest VIP section ever. And Verone starts measuring his dig against Brian over Monica. Then Verone takes them back to the back room for further discussion. A couple minutes later, woman brings a detective that is on the take with Verone into the back, and Verone says they're going to have a little fun. So Verone tries to put the screws on the detective to get a window of time for Brian and Roman to make the run, but the detective says he can't do it, so Verone has his men hold the detective down, and he places a rat on his chest with a metal bucket over it and starts to heat the bucket. The point being that in a panic, the rat will start to chew through anything in order to get away from the heat. That anything being this cop's chest.
Yeah, and again, like, for those who are listening who don't know, this is that was something during medieval times that was used during like the times of burning people at the stakes and shit like that. It's just weird to have that in like a 2003 torture scene. Like, you would think the guy is getting, and not to be graphic, but the guy's gonna get his like fingernails pulled out or something with drills. Something
what would have been on brand.
Random.
Like it, post 9/11 waterboarding.
Well, this is pre Guantanamo Bay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't think of that yet.
Yeah.
Because they're around cars, electrocuting them with the car battery.
Yeah, you clamp his nipples, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You would think for a car movie that they would have car torture, but no.
Just beat the shit out of them. Right? Just good old fashioned brass knuckles.
Yeah, I mean,
we're thinking too creatively here.
Right. Yeah, so just beat the shit out of him. I like it.
He takes a couple scratches from the rat, and he's talking like a
yeah.
He's singing like a I can't even. What
like a canary.
A canary. There you go. He's singing like a canary, man. Like, oh, it's scratching me. I'll do it. Yeah, you rough him up a little bit. I'm sure he'll talk.
Yeah, this came out in June, so this is like 2 months into the Iraq War, so
yeah, they hadn't
crazy shit hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
Sure enough, the rat starts biting the detective, and Verone keeps going until the detective finally gives in, and they let him up. And now Verone has bought the guys 15 minutes of time without the cops, and lets the guys leave and gives them instructions to meet the day after next. Then threatens Monica that he'll kill her if he sees her touch another man ever again. So guys go to Tej's garage, which is an insignificant scene, except during a card game, Ludacris just casually drops a royal flush like it's nothing.
Yeah, I've been holding up for this.
Early next morning, Monica shows up at Brian's houseboat to let him know that Verone plans to kill both of them as soon as the drop is over. And then right on cue, Verone's goons are just there at his houseboat.
Did she swim there?
Her hair was wet,
She's
right?
soaking wet. I was like, did she sprint there? Did she swim? What happened?
I don't know, but I did notice
really
that.
humid in Miami.
That's true, and she is smoking hot, but
she's just very into Paul Walker.
Yeah, sure.
She's soaking wet.
She did like Zumba there or something like that. I just got
Roman goes
hot yoga.
Roman goes outside to stall them while Monica makes her escape, but he can only hold them off for so long as the guys pull guns on them and start searching the boat looking for her specifically. They get in a tussle as Monica makes her escape until Verone stops everyone fighting and tells them that his goons will be riding with both of them for the run. Then back at his place, Verone questions Monica's whereabouts, and meanwhile Brian and Roman meet with the cops to discuss what they've learned over the last day. Bilkins wants to call the whole thing off, but James Remar says no and gives them GPS trackers so they know their whereabouts during the run. So after their meeting, Roman and Brian discuss how Verone doesn't need all that money he's about to put in their cars, so they call Tej to create a plan as Joe Budden's Pump It Up plays, and for a second I thought I was playing Madden 2004.
Yeah.
As the sun goes down, Brian and Roman have a heart-to-heart about childhood and Roman's arrest. And the next morning, as all the cops are in position, the guys meet with the Verone's goons and they head to the trailer park.
There's a funny scene or a funny line in that scene where they're talking about their childhood. Remember when we used to do all those stupid things like playing football and playing in the dirt? That's not stupid. That's childhood. That everybody did that, no?
And also adds to the homoeroticism.
Yeah,
that's true. Playing in the dirt.
Remember that time we
rolled in the dirt?
Remember that time you like gave me a hand job? Right. And we told us not to talk about it ever again.
That was just stupid stuff.
I'm
right,
bringing
bro?
it up right now.
That's just stupid stuff, bro. That would have been a weird transition, to say the least.
It would have been more truthful, though, to be honest.
Oh yeah, and probably added a star to the movie.
Yeah. So the goons go into the one of the trailers and they take a couple sledgehammers and start busting down a wall with a ton of money behind it.
I didn't know that this was Joel Osteen's place.
So they load the cars up with cash and go to head out, and the cops make a move on them. So Rowan rigs a car to drive right into the cops, giving them an opportunity to get away. A chase ensues as the guys have the cops on their tail as they hit the highway. Cops are about 12 cruisers deep and a helicopter also, but Brian and Roman have family. That harpoon gun makes another appearance and catches Brian's car, but this time Brian manages to grab it and pull it off the car and then tosses it into a police cruiser. So the chase continues as Remar's men start to move on an airfield they anticipate the drop taking place at. And then Brian and Roman take the cops on a trip into some neighborhoods and then duck into a warehouse that Tej hooked them up with back in the planning montage. And they close the doors behind them, leaving the cops outside waiting for them to come out. Then all the doors open, hundreds of cars start driving out of the warehouse with a bunch of pickups first, pushing the cop cruisers out of the way. All the doors open up, and we get wave after wave of ugly-ass street racers. The cops try in vain to chase down all the cars, but it's absolute chaos. They still have the GPS on the original two cars, so the cops continue to follow them until they make it to the beach, but it winds up being Tej and Suki behind the wheels of both cars. Brian and Roman are free of any police tail in the two cars they won in the street race. Meanwhile, Tej and Suki are being arrested. Belkins tells Remar they lost Brian and Roman, so he decides to take Verone at the airstrip. But Verone isn't there. Meanwhile, Roman presses a button which shoots the goon in his car out of the passenger side. But when Brian's about to push his button, his goons tell him to change his destination. They are not going to the airstrip. Brian shows up at a dock where Verone is waiting for Monica with a yacht, and the goons start pushing Brian around. He tosses Verone the bag of money, and Verone starts asking him about the airstrip. Brian says he doesn't know anything about the feds at the airstrip, which exposes Monica as a customs agent because she was the only one Verone told about the airstrip. So Brian just threw her in the bus. Verone orders his men to take Monica on board the yacht and tells his man to take care of Brian. Verone gets on the yacht, and the man gets ready to blow Brian's head off in the car. Then Roman comes in out of nowhere and crashes into them, and then he hops out and starts curb stopping everyone with Brian's help. But the yacht gets away, so they hop back in the car and start chasing after the yacht. Luckily, for some reason, there's a ramp that leads them right into going airborne and landing on the top of the yacht, crashing it nearly right on top of Verone. After they land and the dust settles, Verone pops up with a shotgun, but Brian shoots him right in the arm, and then Monica manages to take the shotgun from Verone. They take the yacht back to shore, and they debrief with James Remar, who asks them to confirm that there was only 3 bags of cash, and he says they held up their end of the bargain, so their records are now clean. So then Roman, quote-unquote, finds 3 more bags in the Challenger. There's a whole unresolved moment where Verone may get out of jail and try and find and kill both Brian and Roman, but then we move on, and they debrief with Bilkins and Monica. who totally eye fucks Brian as she leaves. And as they leave, Brian and Roman talks about staying in Miami and opening up a garage with some of the money they walked off with after this entire ordeal. That's the end with Too Fast, Too Furious. Too Fast, Too Furious. Didn't love it. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, pass.
I agree.
And I feel like we've talked this movie to death.
I have no desire to see any of the other ones.
First of all, this gives me no hope for the rest of the series. And also, I found the movie boring as well. On top of like everything else, there's not one thing that I'm like, oh my god, wow, that was so crazy. Like, I was bored watching it, even though they tried to make it as like outlandish and crazy as possible.
Yeah, sure.
So
yeah, I think that's all we're going to say about this movie. Tia, why don't you plug your stuff one last time for us?
Yeah, no, thank you. Absolutely. So again, geekvibesnation.com is where you can find all of my articles, the articles of everyone on GVN. Geek Vibes Podcast is our YouTube handle. We should be starting back up the Marvel Cinematic review once Moon Knight comes. I actually got to get the screeners for the first 4 episodes. You won't be disappointed when it comes out on Disney Plus. And if you want to follow me on my socials, I am on Twitter and Instagram at TC_Stark. I'm more active on Twitter than I am on Instagram, but if you feel like following me, go right ahead.
Okay, great. And that's going to wrap us up this week. We still, as we mentioned, we have that poll that is currently going on. If you're listening to this day one, on our Twitter about the next week's movie. Check that out. Go vote for us if you can. That's going to wrap us up this week for They Call Us Movie. Too Fast, Too Furious was the movie, and the director was John Singleton. So, for Dan Aquino, Mark Myers, and Tia, this is Anthony Del Vecchio telling John Singleton, well, you certainly made a movie, didn't you? Thanks for listening to They Called Us a Movie. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. You can also check us out on TikTok at They Called Us a Movie.